Hi everybody, Adrian Plass here,
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
and today is something to do with Heinz.
Oh, 57 varieties.
Well, there have been
There
57,
you go.
yeah, there you are, yes.
Yeah. Funny old time, isn't it, Adrian? You know,
Very
we're
strange, yeah. It's getting stranger
getting
by the
stranger.
day.
Maybe especially in the UK, on top of all the fear and all the sadness. Our tiny little green shoots of hope have been a bit sort of knocked down by a bit of a storm, and people are feeling angry and bewildered and confused and all sorts of other things. Maybe, we were talking about these pictures on the wall. It's not a bad time, is it, to look at the things that mean a lot to us, the things that are whatsoever things are lovely,
Well, we
whatsoever
talked the
things are
other
of good
day,
report.
we talked the other day, didn't we, about hammering in the tent pegs of the things that were definite.
We did.
I think it is good time to look at things we love, people we love, and
Yeah.
I know we keep saying it, but there's no doubt about it. You've got to hang on to the things that are good.
Yes,
Really,
absolutely.
really, really
And I think
important.
that's why it's been lovely to hear from people about their pictures, because I haven't really heard so much about the quality of the painting but more about what it does when you look at the painting that means a lot to you. And we certainly had one email, didn't we, from somebody who has a beautiful picture of Poland, and she said it brings back a world of memories.
Brings back all sorts of things, memories of a place in Poland
Yeah.
and friends in China
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
family because
Yes.
of connections.
Yeah.
I mean, I think she said a whole world
That's
of,
what I
of
said.
memories.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And she loves it. And actually, we loved it too, didn't we? It's
We
a
did. It was
wonderful picture.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was given with love. I have a very special picture. Now, this isn't a high quality drawing. It's a drawing by my son when I think he was 8. And I was in hospital, if you remember, before having Kate, there for quite a few weeks. Things weren't going too well. And he sent me a picture of our dog. Now, our dog was a Briard, a very hairy dog. And if ever there was a dog who didn't understand social distancing, it was our Rosie, because she would literally stand right in front of you until you tripped over her and refused to move. So the one thing I wasn't missing at 8 months pregnant with high blood pressure was Rosie. But that picture meant so much
It was
because
a
it was
great
given
picture
with love.
too.
It was. It was full of her spirit.
It was Rosie, and of course he went on to become a world-renowned artist, didn't he?
He didn't.
No, he didn't.
He
No,
didn't.
he
He
didn't.
didn't. And of course, the other picture that meant a lot to somebody, a friend of ours in Scotland was saying he has that amazing picture of the Return of the Prodigal by Rembrandt. And we were talking about looking for something new, weren't we, when we looked at the familiar?
That's right.
And he said that the thing that he hadn't understood until comparatively recently was that when you look at that painting, you see that the father who's embracing his son, who's kneeling in front of him, has two different sorts of hands. One is very much a man's hand, one is very much a woman's hand. And for Rembrandt, it was the idea of the father love, the mother love, embracing that son who's come back. So for him, it now has a new, vivid, not a memory, a new, vivid importance to him.
Yes, thank you very much for that. And we are very much into new angles, looking at things. Going right back to the beginning when I first started writing, I was a little unsure about rewriting bits of the Bible, but I had a chat with God over coffee one morning.
I was going to say it didn't stop you, did it, Adrian?
No, I just did it. This is a version of the Prodigal Son, which is a rewrite of the Prodigal story. And as you go through, you'll see where the changes occur. At last he cometh to his senses, and he saith, All my father's workers have more than they can eat, and here am I about to starve. I will arise and go to my father and say, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against thee. I am no longer worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. So he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a long way off, his father seeth him, and runneth to him, and falleth on his neck, and pulleth his hair, and smacketh his backside, and clumpeth him on the ear, and saith, Where the devil do you think you've been, scumbag? And the prodigal replied, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against thee. I am no longer worthy to be called thy son. Make me as one of thy hired servants. The father saith, Too right, I'll make thee one of my hired servants, master dirty stop-out, inheritance spending stinker pinker prodigal. I suppose thou believest thou can waltz back in here without so much as by thine leave, and conneth me with thine dramatic little speech. Thinkest thou that this is Little House on the Prairie? Or mayhap thou reckonest that I was born yestereen? Oh no, third assistant bog cleaner for thee, mine odorous ex-relative. Then the prodigal said dismally unto him, Oh, right, fair enough. So, just to get it straight, there existeth no question of lots of nice presents and instant forgiveness and large celebratory meal or anything of that nature. In thy dreams, son, replied the father, the only gift thou art likely to receive is the personalized bog brush with which thou shalt shortly be presented. And the father taketh the prodigal by that ear which previously he clumpeth, and hauleth him back to the farm. And lo, the fatted calf rejoiceth greatly. And behold, as nightfall approacheth, the prodigal's elder brother heareth distant sounds as of an bog brush being applied, and he strolleth out to the edge of the cesspit after supper, holding an large brandy, and he stretcheth luxuriously, and picketh his teeth, and lighteth an enormous cigar, and looketh down, and saith, Evening, prod, I see thou hast returned. Likest thou thine rapid progress from affluent to effluent? And the prodigal looketh up and saith, Verily thou rebukest me justly with thine clever barb. When I had great wealth I shared it not with thee, but now I freely offer thee and good share of what is mine. And he flicketh at the elder brother with his brush, so that an weighty portion of something exceeding unpleasant ploppeth into his brother's brandy glass, and his brother retireth, threatening to tell his dad. And the prodigal findeth his father, and saith unto him, Behold, all these years during which I was in an far country, mine smug, pie-faced, hypocritical dipstick of an brother must have caused thee to gnash thine teeth on a daily basis. How come he getteth all the perks, like brandy, cigars, and such like, while I remaineth up to mine elbows in other people's poo? But his father replieth, Thine brother is boring but biddable. Get on with thine work, thou less than baldric, and think thyself lucky. The father departeth, and the prodigal saith to himself, Blow this for an game of centurions, I wisheth I can come home now, just as hungry, twice as guilty, and 4 times as smelly. Verily, if by a miracle any time off ever presenteth itself, there existeth in my mind no doubt about how I shall seek to occupy it. Definitely, it's a day trip to the pigs for me. And the extraordinary thing about that, of course, it's completely turns the story on its head, is that still an awful lot of people that we meet and talk to believe that version.
They do.
Not the details, but I find it very difficult to believe that they're going to be greeted as the prodigal is in the story.
Absolutely. So in a way, by turning it upside down, you can look at it again.
I think it makes it much clearer. Yeah.
And there are so many people who can read that story and think, yeah, but it's not me. It's not me. And the most extreme example of that, actually, was a girl that we met in Zambia. Now, I think we said before, we were in Zambia looking at the work that World Vision was done with AIDS. And we went to one of the borders. The thing about Zambia is it has a lot of borders, and at every border as a kind of no man's land where the lorry drivers arrive and they have to wait sometimes for weeks to get their papers sorted out. Well, there are a lot of orphans in Zambia and a lot of little girls, and there's only really one career open for little girls on the streets in a lot of countries. And so some of these girls end up at the border, and what are they doing? They're climbing into the lorry driver's cab, and they're having sex with the lorry driver. The lorry driver then takes AIDS back to his family. The girl takes AIDS to everybody that she meets. They are poor things. We met a whole group of them.
Very lovely, weren't they? Lovely girls.
They were. And we met one of them. Her name was Chilufia. And she was actually trying to get a job so she could look after her little brother, her parents having died. Now, Zambia is a Christian country, and Shilufia said, well, I was brought up a Christian, but I don't attend church now. And Adrian said, but if you can get a job and leave the sex work, do you think you'll go back to church? And she raised her head and looked at us with her dark eyes, so wide, with unshed tears. And she said, well, how can I possibly go back? When I'm near a church, all I can see are the things I've done. How can God even look at me when he knows what I have been? And that is the big, big problem for the World Vision workers. How are they going to reach these girls who have left behind everything that they believed was good and right and upright? And how are they going to reach them? How are they going to help them to come away from this awful work? Well, we discovered, didn't we, Adrian? Because we were going to meet these girls and we were going across a field. And as very often happens on these trips, you kind of stop somewhere, don't you? You don't know where you're going and why you're going there. But
very rarely know what you're doing.
No, you never know what you're doing. So we stopped. There was a two-team, very energetic games of football going on, all women. And our leader said, we're just going to have a word with them. So we did. We went across and said hello. Actually, these highly trained, beautifully turned out young women were the teenage sex workers. Because what the World Vision workers had realised is they had to affirm them where they were. They had to go down the road like the prodigal father did and meet them and affirm them, make them feel good enough about themselves that they might think they could make the journey back. So what did they do? They kitted them out with the best kit. They trained them to a high standard and they got them playing football every day. And one by one, these girls were coming along and saying, I can't climb into any more lorry cabs. I just can't do this anymore. I want to be this person. I want to feel good about myself. And at that point, the workers were able to say, we can help. We have a program called Sanduka, which means deep, deep help. We can bring you back. We can give you a trade and we can bring you back into the family of God. It was like turning something completely upside down, wasn't it? It was one of the most lovely things.
There are a lot of questions to be asked about all of that. I remember Chilufia very well. She was such a beautiful girl and so didn't want to be doing what she was doing.
No.
And I know some people would say, well, if God cared so much, why did he allow her to get into such an impoverished state that she wasn't able to support her brother without doing what she did? Those are big questions.
Well, they're the questions about the virus. They're the questions about AIDS passed on to the innocent.
They are. Right at the bottom of it, I believe, we discover a very vulnerable God. I can't answer those questions. I can't ignore them either. You have to put them on a shelf and say, there they sit, there they stand, until one day I can say, tell me why. But in the meantime, I'm also very aware of the vulnerability, and I don't care if it is a paradox, of a God who, though all-powerful, isn't able to intervene all the time, but desperately wants people to come home. And I wrote this a long time ago. I've got to stop saying that. It's the prodigal father talking to his household, and I was just trying to catch some of the pain in that. Thank you all for being here. You will be aware that my youngest son has been absent from my home for many months, and he wanted his share of his inheritance, and he wanted to leave and seek a new life. It wasn't my wish or my will he should do that, and the pain of parting from him was almost more than I can bear. I have a letter brought to me today. It contains details of the life my son is living. Terrible things fill his hours in this far country to which he's travelled, and the person who brought the letter spoke with bitterness and derision of my boy, presumably believing I would echo his condemning tone. My oldest son mocks the notion of his younger brother being of any value to me. His words are very harsh and filled with hate. He thinks he pleases me when he's so dismissive. He does not. Other gentler souls counsel me, forget I had a younger son. Let it be as though he does not exist, as if he were dead. You will find peace. They could not be more wrong. Only one thing will bring me peace. Only one thing will heal my broken heart, and that will be the homecoming of my beloved youngest son. I wept when he departed. I begged him for his own sake to stay. I knew all too well the life he would live in that place, and it would be a denial of all the good, right things he learned at my knee. But listen to this. I love him. I love that boy without any condition, and I long for him. My love for him will never die. I can't force him to return home. He's where he wishes to be, and I have to be here. I am what I am, and he is what he is, and I will live forever with the pain of loving him from a distance, if that is what the future holds. But at the instant he decides to leave his life and come back where he belongs, I shall run to meet him, and I shall enfold him in my arms, and I shall shower him with presents, and I shall throw a party the like of which has never been seen in this household. I think you'll be very surprised. And my friends, if by some chance you should happen to encounter him on your travels, could you please just pass on that there is a Father who watches for him every single day and offers nothing but love and forgiveness if he should decide to come home. And I want to thank you all so much for listening to me.
So many of us have people we love, don't we, who are a long, long, long way from God. And it can be like Chilufia and the other young girls that we met through no fault of their own, through things that have happened in their lives that have kind of thrown them away. Or it could be like the prodigal, just thoughtless and careless, who just ended up in a complete mess. But it is true, isn't it, that we have a God who loves us unconditionally. So it's fine, isn't it, to pray that there will be someone out there looking out for them, like the World Vision workers in Zambia and all over the world, and all the other aid agencies, and like individuals. So let's pray for that, and let's have confidence that God does love all of us without condition at all.
Especially those who really cannot believe it.
Absolutely.
Really, really hope you find some light in that darkness.
Yeah.
Really do.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. See you tomorrow.